Hello, it's midsummer and it's the perfect time to start thinking about sowing biennials. Now biennials are things that we would sow at this time of year. They would just put on leafy growth and then they would flower next year. So this is a long-term project. Just when you thought all the jobs were done in the garden for the summer, here pops up another one. But it's really well worth doing because things like foxgloves, sweet williams, wallflowers, some of these lovely old-fashioned border fillers, and it can be very rewarding. You can buy the young plants in the garden centres, of course, but this is something nice to do at this time of year if you're feeling like getting cracking with some sowing again. So for this I'm using our Silvergrow John Innes seed compost. It's a lovely fine soil-based compost. This time, instead of doing it in modules, I'm going to fill a seed tray. These seeds are going to be in here for a little while. I haven't got a massive amount of space left in the garden at this time of year. You can sow biennials directly into the soil in the spaces in your garden, but if you're like me, the garden is literally full up. I don't have spare seed bed space. So I'm going to sow them in this tray. It'll take about even up to a month, 3 weeks to a month to germinate. Then they can sit there and develop. I'll pot them on in the autumn. They'll put on a nice strong root system. Then as soon as the weather warms up in the spring, I'll be able to pot them out, plant them out in the garden and get good strong early plants. So as with all seed sowing, success comes from good contact between the compost and the seed. So a nice bit of just gentle tamping to slightly, I'm not tamping it down to death, I'm just lightly pressing it down. I'm then going to lightly water it. That will be fine. I'm just going to pop it in here so that it doesn't wet my surface. And then, now these foxglove seeds and a lot of these biennial seeds are actually quite fine. We want to sprinkle them quite thinly because there should be a reasonable amount of germination success with these fairly robust growers, these biennials. And incidentally, this is also a good system for some of the hardy annuals, things like, well, of course, sweet peas get off to a very good start, or you might sow those in the autumn. Cornflowers, Ami majus, a lovely large cow parsley type of thing, or Orlea grandiflora, these lovely hardy annuals. So that will be enough seed just sprinkled lightly on the surface. Now I could put more compost on the top for something that's going to take a long time to germinate. It's quite nice to use some fine, just a thin layer of fine, this is our Melcourt potting grit. I wouldn't recommend that you use anything finer than this. If you use sand, it can cap slightly over time. Remembering again, these are going to be in this seed tray for a little while. You don't want anything that's going to cap on the surface and prevent the seedlings from germinating their way through. So just a light layer. I'm doing this rather slowly, you can make this job a bit quicker. And that'll just be enough. Those are very small seeds. Usually, as a general rule, the smaller the seed, the less covering it needs. But anything that's going to be in there for a while needs a bit of protection. So I'm going to lightly water that again. And that can go into a nice quiet corner in the garden, not somewhere in full sun particularly. Once germinated, it will need plenty of light, of course, but once your little seedlings have got to a stage where you can prick them out, do that into small pots or modules and just nurture your plants and be prepared for a lovely display of, in this case, foxgloves in the early summer next year.